Well, I just watched it. First of all, I think Eubank done it to make a point with the egg, because we all know what happened with the egg. Conor ate eggs that were tainted, allegedly, and they therefore his drug test, he failed.
Failing the drug test,
So, it's part of the build-up.
Steve Collins, the Irish boxing icon who famously defeated both Chris Eubank Jr. and Nigel Benn in the 1990s, has now turned his sharp eye to the next generation, the explosive rivalry between their sons, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. For Collins, this isn't just another matchup. It's personal, historic, and deeply symbolic. A man who carved his name into boxing history by besting two of Britain's fiercest warriors, Collins now watches this brewing battle of bloodlines with a mix of curiosity, caution, and respect. The stakes are high, not only because of the fighters' skill sets, but because of the names they carry into the ring. Reflecting on the controversial backdrop of the rivalry, Collins addressed Conor Benn's failed drug test, which had previously cast a shadow over the fight. Never one to shy away from difficult topics, Collins stressed the importance of integrity in the sport, warning that boxing is already walking a tightrope. He emphasized the need for strict standards and accountability in an era where public trust in the sport can be fragile. When asked how he sees a potential bout between Eubank Jr. and Benn playing out, Collins cracked a knowing grin and delivered a line that immediately sparked intrigue.
No, the really are carbon copies of that. Definitely, yeah. Nigel Benn Sr. was raw, and when he hit, he hurt. He was dangerous, and Chris Eubank Sr. was clever and was very durable. So the two sons are a reflection of their father. So it's and that's a great fight.
I think Eubank could win it, until Benn hits him. That single sentence captures the essence of what makes this fight so unpredictable. Collins believes that Eubank Jr. has the tools, the footwork, the jab, and the ring IQ to outbox Benn over several rounds. He sees Eubank as the more polished technician, someone who could control the pace and pick his shots with intelligence and patience. But Conor Benn, in Collins's eyes, brings something you can't train for: raw, fight-ending power. He's got that one-punch game changer, Collins said, the kind of shot that can erase a strategy in a heartbeat. It's that knockout potential that gives Benn the X factor, a threat that looms over every round, no matter how well Eubank Jr. may be performing. One lapse, one mistimed movement, and everything could change in an instant. Yet beyond the technical and tactical breakdowns, what excites Collins the most is the emotional and...
Eubank was fun. I'm a very big supporter of British Boxing Board of Control. I know a lot of guys have worked there, and I think it's a great organisation. And I believe they fined him £100,000 for that action. I think that's a bit unfair. I think it's a big fine. I think they should give him a fine, a slap on the wrist, and an apology. I think charging him 100 grand for that is it's a bit steep, and I don't really agree with that. Although I do support them in a lot of the decisions they make, I kind of think that one's a bit hard, and I think they should retract that and just give him a slap on the wrist, charge him a few bob, and just get on with it, because it's all part of the build-up. He didn't punch him, didn't do anything crazy, he didn't headbutt him. He hit him with an egg, to wind him up, I think.
It's the historical weight of the fight. To him, this isn't just a contest between two skilled athletes. It's a battle soaked in pressure, pride, and the legacy of two men he once went to war with in the ring. He doesn't just see similarities between the sons and their legendary fathers. He sees mirror images. The passion, the aggression, the pride. It's all there, passed down from one generation to the next. It's a rare moment in boxing where past and present collide, not just for bragging rights, but to carry the torch.
When he slaps an egg off the side of his head, which I don't like and I think is a bit dangerous and stupid, it takes it to another level commercially. And like I said, it's out of control, if I'm being totally honest. God help it fight week, because I think the whole country's just going to be engulfed in it. I think it'll be on the front page and the back page of every paper. And it's huge, because of the legacy and the name that their fathers carried. And now they've they've actually took it themselves to another personal level.
Tony,
what's gone on with the whole drama around it all, in my opinion.
Forward. For Steve Collins, this is more than hype. It's a clash of legacies. This isn't just about who wins in the ring. It's about who's worthy of the name. As the long-awaited showdown between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn inches closer, boxing legend Steve Collins has stepped into the conversation, and his perspective carries weight. Collins, the man who famously beat both Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn, sees this fight not just as another big-ticket bout, but as a collision of legacies. With a front-row view to history repeating itself, Collins is watching the next generation of fighters with a blend of nostalgia and deep insight. What stands out to Collins isn't just the hype or the rivalry, it's the striking similarities between fathers and sons. He doesn't just spot familiar styles or techniques, he sees mirror images of the fierce warriors he once faced. For Collins, this isn't just about two men in a ring, it's about who can...
You are a cheat, and there's no hiding it, there's no forgetting it. This will stay with you for the rest of your life. Getting that snapshot of him, with the yolk dripping down the side of his chin piece, and he's gritting his teeth, I'm gonna make a t-shirt of that. That image is gonna stay with him for the rest of his life. And that's what kids will see. If you treat with jugs, you're gonna pay for it.
Carry the torch of two of the most iconic names in British boxing. And while he acknowledges Eubank Jr.'s advantages, sharp footwork, a crisp jab, and high ring IQ, Collins doesn't ignore the danger Benn brings. But Benn, he said with a knowing look, he's got that one-punch game-changer, the kind of power that can erase a strategy in a heartbeat. It's that raw, explosive force that makes Conor Benn a constant threat, no matter how polished his opponent might be.
I think they're gonna go in there and it's gonna be no holds barred. They're gonna literally. I just hope these two don't see each other before the fight comes. I wouldn't like these two to see each other in the street or bump into each other shopping around London or whatever. I think it's that volatile it could spill.
But Collins isn't the only former fighter weighing in. Tony Bellew has also added fuel to the fire, praising Eubank Jr. for a trait few boxers ever fully master: complete psychological control. According to Bellew, Eubank Jr. isn't just preparing for a physical battle, he's already winning the mental war. He's not just fighting Conor Benn, Bellew explained. He's playing chess with the media, steering the narrative, and getting inside Benn's head before a punch has even landed. From press conferences to interviews, Bellew says Eubank Jr. has the public, the media, and maybe even Benn himself dancing to his tune. And that, in a fight driven by legacy, can be just as damaging as a clean shot to the chin. But Bellew also issued a clear warning: the pressure isn't equal. While both fighters carry a legacy, the burden falls heavier on Eubank Jr. With his father's legacy, public expectations, and a history of near misses in major fights, Bellew believes Eubank has more to lose. If he slips, Bellew said.
Does the loser go, Tony, after it?
Oh. Well, I think, if I'm being brutally honest, there's only pride to lose for Conor Benn. I mean, for Chris Eubank Jr., he's got everything to lose. If he gets beat or knocked out off a welterweight and he's a middleweight/super middleweight, then he is going to be in a world of trouble.
The fall is bigger, the backlash louder, and the consequences more severe. This bout is more than just fists and footwork. It's about reputation, redemption, and revenge. And in a fight where legacy looms large, the margin for error is razor thin. As the anticipation for Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. reaches a fever pitch, boxing analyst and former world champion Tony Bellew has stepped forward with a brutally honest breakdown of what's really at stake, and why this clash is far more than just another chapter in a famous rivalry. According to Bellew, for Conor Benn, this fight is all about pride and redemption. Benn is stepping up in weight, taking a risk, and embracing the underdog role with open arms.
It really is. But like I said before, it's it's egos, it's pride at stake, it's family names, and I mean, ultimately, let's all just be brutally honest. This is happening because of the money is astronomical.
He's hungry, aggressive, and determined to carve out his own legacy beyond the shadows of his legendary father, Nigel Benn. For him, it's a bold challenge, one that could elevate his status or prove costly. But for Chris Eubank Jr., Bellew insists the stakes are much higher. Losing to a natural welterweight, Bellew explained, wouldn't just be a loss, it would be a massive career setback. Eubank Jr. is the bigger man, the more experienced fighter, and the one under intense pressure to deliver. A defeat here wouldn't just bruise his ego, it could damage his entire brand and reputation, making recovery in the public eye incredibly difficult. Bellew believes that's exactly what makes this fight so emotionally charged. The pressure.
Like I said, there's so much more to lose for Eubank Jr. than there is for Conor. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the only reason Eubank Jr. will win is because of size, because it's not. This is a fight, in my opinion, of two halves. The first 6 rounds will belong to Conor Benn. He will not be able to keep Conor Benn off for 6 rounds. If he is able to absorb what Conor Benn is able to dish out for 6 rounds, the fight then turns in his favour. Because the second 6, that's when size does come into play.
Isn't shared equally. But beyond pride, pressure, and personal legacy, Bellew also pointed to the elephant in the room. There's another powerful force driving this fight: money. With 2 massive names, fiery drama, and a storyline rooted in decades of family rivalry, the financial stakes are enormous. Pay-per-view sales, sponsorship deals, and career-defining paydays have all added fuel to an already volatile showdown. When it comes to the actual fight, Bellew broke it down as a game of 2 halves. He sees Benn taking control early, using his speed, aggression, and natural explosiveness to overwhelm Eubank Jr. in the first few rounds. However, Bellew believes the real battle starts after round 6. If Eubank Jr. can weather the storm, his size, experience, and grit could flip the script. As the fight
I
drags,
actually think he's a better fighter than he is a boxer. Technically, he's not very good. I don't know where he gets off on thinking he's the second coming of Roy Jones Jr., because he's not. And as for Conor, he knows what he is. He goes in and he lets his hands go. And he's reckless and he's wild and he can be explosive and dynamic. All of them things he's going to need in this fight, Chris Eubank Jr. And he's going to need a little bit more as well. He's going to have to be rough, rugged, and he's not going to be able to stop.
into the later rounds, Bellew predicts Eubank's toughness and ring IQ will start to shine. That's when the real damage gets done, he said. If Eubank survives early, he could dominate late. But Bellew didn't stop there. While some label Eubank Jr. as all flair and confidence, Bellew offered a more raw take. He's not the slickest boxer, Bellew admitted, but when it gets chaotic, when things get gritty, that's where Eubank thrives. Still, he warned that chaos alone won't be enough against a fighter like Benn. Eubank Jr. will need to dig deeper than ever before, beyond flash, beyond bravado, to survive the war that's coming. Even rising heavyweight prospect Moses Italma weighed in, but refused to pick a side, calling the fight too unpredictable to call. That's what makes it must-watch, he said. Now it's your turn. Who are you backing? Team Benn or Team Eubank? Drop your pick in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more raw, unfiltered boxing coverage. Because when legacies, pride, and pressure collide, it's not just a fight, it's war.